Hello, CoinGeek. Good afternoon. Yeah. So my name is Sean Pollock. Some of you guys might be familiar with my work on BSV. I had been working on a smart contracting platform on top of Bitcoin that was similar to Ethereum, but it ran solely on top of the BSV platform. And the results were quite successful, right? I had live token contracts written in C++, running off a WASM VM, getting hit by on-chain transactions. But when you start to build out token ecosystems, you really need to take into account the nuances. How do you handle chain reorgs? How do you ensure your data pipeline has zero losses? And so when I was starting to think about these things, I took a step back and decided I really needed to focus on the core infrastructure layer. And so to make a long story short, Planaria has acquired BSV. Both Glenn, aka G-Wolf, and myself are now working full-time on Planaria and really focused on the back-end infrastructure, scaling things out, really making sure things are reliable in the back end. And that's going to be the focus of today's talk. I know at Planaria we've got a lot of libraries out there, a lot of tools. It can be a little confusing. So I just want to kind of drag a highlighter across our main services and really just point out the key pieces of infrastructure that make everything else possible. First of which is BitFS. Guys, really excited about BitFS. You may have seen we released the UI and the file server a couple weeks back. This means any transaction on Bitcoin that contains a push data over 512 bytes, we're going to go ahead and scrape out that file, determine the content type, stored in a distributed file system, and you can really easily query it later on by a nice consistent URI schema, right? Transaction hash, input-output index, script index. It makes everything very simple, and it also makes it really simple to kind of link these BitFS files, right? Think about it. You can post an HTML file that references other static content like images or videos, and boom, you've got an image sharing app, right? You can have one BitFS website that references another BitFS website. As soon as we start to add things like Elasticsearch, that search bar at bitfs.network is going to start to look a whole lot like Google Search. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff to come in BitFS. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. The second piece of the puzzle is BitDB. Now, this is probably the API that most developers are familiar with, right? We crawl the historical blocks, we listen in real time for transactions coming in, we parse the raw transactions to a really nice, clean JSON format that can be queried. This allows developers to filter for things like Bitcoin addresses, different script patterns. It's a really flexible and powerful query interface to all the transactions on Bitcoin. Third piece of infrastructure is BitSocket. So you get the same powerful query language you get in BitDB, but now you can listen for transactions in real time. This is a really powerful API. The new release now uses server-side events, so it's portable to mobile apps, web apps, server-side. You can pretty much plug it in wherever you want. And guys, these three pieces of infrastructure, BitFS, BitDB, BitSocket, you can pretty much build any app imaginable on top of Bitcoin with this tool set. It's extremely powerful. And so let's just take a look at kind of the network architecture of Planaria. Right, this is our mining nodes. Everyone loves the fully complete graph of the mining network. The next layer on top is our core Planaria nodes, right? Our Planaria nodes talk P2P just like the miners do. We ingest the data, we transform it, and then we provide a really nice external API for other layers to talk into and hook on top of, right? And so what's the next layer on top? Right, we got small Planarias, little apps, right? BitPick, Bitstagram, all the amazing BSV community apps that use our tool set. But what I want you guys to think about is, as we start to scale, right, what if we keep going, right? Imagine if we keep adding layers on top, right? It's starting to look a lot like the Mandela network that Craig's been talking about, right? Each child Planaria node can either have a subset of its parent, or it can combine multiple parents if we want to do a join table. And this is really the advantage of Bitcoin. It's really about having all these applications that can share data across each other. It's not about getting siloed off into your own bit270 where you have to handle your own write interface, your own read interface. This is really about the kind of factorial growth patterns you get when all data is related to each other, right? Imagine if Facebook Amazon, Google, all had the same backend. That's really what we're building with Bitcoin. And so how do we do this? With BitBus. If you're an application developer, if you're a company and you want to host your own data, we love that. We want to make that as easy as possible for you to do, and that's what BitBus is for. It allows you to synchronize with the underlying Planaria infrastructure and host your own backend. Right? We don't want to own the whole network. We want to empower developers and other companies out there to kind of take this on and start hosting application data. So yeah, I thought this was kind of interesting. This is the hardware recommendations for running a mining node after the Genesis upgrade. And 64 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of swap, 128, that's quite a bit. I think this is kind of indicative to the point we're getting at. A lot of this is in preparation for the scale we're getting to. But I just want to bring to your attention kind of the compare and contrast mining nodes versus Planaria nodes, right? We both talk P2P, we both ingest the data, we both handle mempool state, but we're doing very different things. While the Bitcoin nodes are executing scripts, validating UTXO, the Planaria nodes, on the other hand, are doing, in some ways, an equivalent workload, but we're taking the data, we're transforming it, we're storing it in a way that can be easily queried. And so I think going forward, we're actually going to see both the mining infrastructure and the core application infrastructure both scaling in somewhat equivalent manners. And so we're really excited to take on these scaling challenges going forward. And this is a fun one. So first of all, really happy to be here in London. As far as I'm concerned, this is kind of the epicenter of Bitcoin SV right now. N-Chain doing amazing work. Obviously building out the core Bitcoin client, really pushing things forward in terms of research. But I want to draw everyone's attention to a somewhat different movement going on across the pond. In London, things are very professional. We really have accomplished businessmen and women, seasoned software engineers. Well, over in New York, we're kind of more the scrappy hacker type. Staying up all night coding, not as presentable, let's say. So right in London, people are focused on enterprise, which is great. Well, in New York, we're like laser focused on developers and end users. In London, more focused on third world. Well, we're going to focus on the first world. It's just kind of the yin and yang to the Bitcoin SV ecosystem, and I think both are extremely important. If we want Bitcoin to be everywhere and everything, we really need to start taking these different routes at development. So let's go back in time a little bit and look at the Google research that was coming out along the same time the Bitcoin white paper was released. Now, I found this very interesting, right? Breakthrough piece of infrastructure coming out of Google. Google File System, MapReduce, Bigtable, BigQuery, all these core infrastructures that have now kind of made their way into open source or running the modern internet. These kind of scaling technologies that are necessary for the Bitcoin application layer to scale have been around now for quite a while. So I think it's time for us to catch up. Not only just catch up, if we're serious about Bitcoin being the single app that runs the internet, we're going to need to take the baton from Google and kind of take things farther. So if you take out Big and you put in Bit, you kind of have our services, right? BitFS, BitDB, BitQuery, and you kind of see where we're going with this. Next. Guys, at the end of the day, it's really simple. We need to improve the write interface. We need to improve the read interface. That's all there is to it. Obviously, at Planaria, we're laser focused on the read. We have other companies doing amazing work on the write side. And I think this is extremely important, right? We don't want companies trying to do everything. We want specialized, great services where developers can plug and play and choose what's best for them. I also think it's important that kind of at this stage, we start to set really ambitious goals on the application side for how we want to scale, right? The N-Chain team is doing great work with STN and really doing a lot of testing towards scaling, but I haven't really seen the same level of dedication on the application side. And so I just want to throw out on the read side, since that's what we're working on Planaria, kind of one audacious goal, our challenge that any developer here watching or wherever else wants to take on. I'm really tired of when I'm testing my software, running a scraper, it takes about 48 hours, right? Even if you're running a Bitcoin node, you want to sync up the chain, it's going to take over 24 hours. guys, this is insane. We have to get much faster. And I think with JavaScript and a tree of containers, I can crawl the entire chain, transform it into TXO, and save it in DB in less than 10 minutes. Obviously, like, we're ways off from that, but I want to challenge anyone out here to see if they can scrape the whole chain, even if you're not transforming, just save the file in less than an hour. And if you can do that, we'd love to have you come talk at our Homebrew Computer Club meetup in New York, which I also want to mention. We're starting a really cool meetup in New York. Be taking place in Soho. The first meeting is on the 25th of this month. Ryan X. Charles will be there, some other great developers. It's going to be kind of a meeting of the minds. It's really kind of kicking off what we have going on in New York. And if any of this appeals to you, go to homebrew.planaria.network, send us your email, and we'll be in touch. And I've got 2 minutes. I might just rant about JavaScript for a little bit. How many developers are here? Okay, cool. So guys, everyone's using JavaScript. All these libraries are basically coming from the Bitcore, DataPay. They're all derivative of that, but it's not really built to scale, right? Even JavaScript alone, do you realize that the max buffer and string size is a gigabyte? How do you even expect to sign a transaction over a gigabyte? Right? Try to pull in block 5095 on Genesis testnet. It's got a transaction that's just a hair under a gigabyte. If you mishandle that data at all, your whole application is going to crash, right? When you start looking at these tough challenges, we need streaming all the way from the P2P socket layer all the way through serialization down. A lot of these libraries need to be built out. I think there's a lot of room for community involvement in open source and developing out the JavaScript ecosystem. And yeah, just really excited for 2020. And yeah, the things to come. Thank you very much.
Hello, it's Hannah Jackson for CoinGeek.com, and I'm here with the lovely Sean Pollock from Planaria. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, tell me a little bit about Planaria. What is it that you do?
So at Planaria, we're building a set of developer tools that make it really easy to build Bitcoin apps. So if you want to query transactions, get real-time updates, all that sort of good stuff.
So how are you finding it being here? I mean, what are you hoping to achieve from it, and who are you hoping to speak and network with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy to be in London. Like I said in my speech, I think this is really kind of the epicenter of Bitcoin SV right now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to kind of the Unchained team, Shatters, Dan Conley, all those guys, and how they're scaling the Bitcoin node. So, yeah.
So looking into the future, the next couple of years, what's on the horizon for you? What are you excited about achieving?
Obviously, we've got a lot of short-term goals, really just making our services more reliable, getting more developers on board, and yeah, taking it from there.
You do sound very positive, but there must be a couple of pain points and challenges that you're going to have to overcome. So what are those, and how are you going to tackle them?
Hopefully, we'll be getting more scale and just all the challenges that come along with that. We're really trying to prepare for that, and it's not easy, but luckily we've got tools like STN Network and other ways in which we can kind of test our infrastructure and prepare for it. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, watch this space. I wonder where we'll see you in a few more months.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.